Hi, everybody. Beth here from Access Paranormal, coming to you live from sunny London. I'm telling you here and now. It's warm. It's really warm. It's top of 36 degrees here in London today, and London is not used to being able to be 36 degrees. Let me tell you that. For those in my Fahrenheit friends, I think that's about 97, to give you a bit of an idea. So again, a comment so I can see you guys, know that you're there, and say hello and do sort of a wave. Virtual wave. As we know, we're all doing it still virtual due to COVID. Thanks very much. But yes, this is a very interesting 3-part series about poltergeist cases in London. And I know often, again, I live on a busy street, so I do apologize if you do get some street noise. But I do think that, a lot of people, when they ask, what got you into the paranormal, for me, it's often been, I'm so intrigued by how maybe possibly objects move from one way to another, and how people might know information they don't previously or could not have previously known. So this is why. And I thought, well, I'm being in lockdown. Obviously, I've been out. As you can see, I'm slightly coloured and enjoying a decent summer. But I've obviously had some time when we were in some serious lockdown here to actually go and research. So my two loves, haunted paranormal stuff, poltergeists, and of course, the city of London, which I love so very dearly. So, okay, cool, excellent. So I'm just double checking all is well. Just checking in the comments here too. So this is all great. All destinations, brilliant. There's that as well. Just double checking, peeps. So again, if you're around, please use the comments there. Obviously, if you're watching this back as well, because not everyone's awake at this time of the day or night, wherever you are planned in the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get stuck into it, and here we go. So 8 Eland Road, Battersea. So this is the first of the 3-part series. Absolutely loving it. I'm very, very fortunate to actually be only a few streets away from this particular location. So the first photo there is what it originally looked like at the time of this particular case. And that photo is one I took about 4 weeks ago at nighttime, doing a bit of a scout around when I took one of my flatmates, because they had no idea this location existed with the activity they were about to talk about today. So so let's have a look here. Let me get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to start to look at the actual case itself. We're going to look through what happened with the activity, what happened during that, and obviously, kind of break it down a little bit more as well. And then our ideas on what we think happened afterwards. So, was it possibly something paranormal or not? We don't know. So we'll go into it a little bit more as well. Oh. So let me do that. Okay. Oi, so we got the beginning. All right. So we're going to look at, firstly, you've got to find out who was actually in this particular location. So we've got Henry Robinson. He was 86 years old. We've got Frederick Robinson, his son. Now you'll notice that the family is a very teacher family as well. So there's Katie Robinson, his daughter. He had another daughter called Lila Robinson, who's also a school teacher. Mrs. Perkins, which was a friend and widow. So that would happen around about this time frame. It wasn't unusual to have people who had widowed and needed somewhere to live, and they didn't really have as much as, or very open to retirement villages back in those days. And also Peter Perkins, which was her son, and he was 14. Okay, that's what it actually looks like on Google Maps, the actual place itself. So the Robinson family lived in the house previously for 25 years with no unusual phenomena reported whatsoever. Again, I think that's kind of interesting because, often people say they first move into a place and then suddenly it's active as all get out. This is really interesting, where they have been there peacefully, no problems, for 25 years. Now, from the 29th of November, 1927, the activity actually started out of the blue. Lumps of coal, pieces of soda, and pennies began to fall on the conservatory, which is a building outside the back of the house. Now, this is another interesting point. Activity is happening outside the house before it's being reported as being inside the house. My computer is just being annoying. There we go. Oh, love it. Okay. And then, of course, it stopped for a few days and then started again. Okay. The pieces of coal were small, but they were able to break the glass of the conservatory. So there must be some decent projection going on for that to happen. Or if they're coming from a distance of height, then that had to have to be in a decent height distance from wherever for that to actually happen. So Henry was concerned and he called the police thinking someone was throwing items over the garden wall. That's pretty standable. It's like that you can kind of understand. It's like that's a pretty logical thing to do. The police arrived and witnessed the phenomena of the objects being thrown. So one even actually hit the policeman's helmet. I would have paid to see that. But again, this is interesting where often if there's reported phenomena, people don't witness it, particularly those who are in a position of law enforcement. So that was probably quite a good thing for them and not so much for the policeman. Although, all for PPE, obviously it helped him out. 19th of December, a washerwoman of the house refused to work in the house due to finding red-hot cinders in the outhouse where there wasn't any clear evidence of a fire anywhere. Now, it is December. It's freezing, trust me. Believe me when I say it is freezing in December when you live here. But there was no evidence of a fire anywhere that had anything there that had any coal. This is what they claim. So that's, again, something is to think about is, well, if there's going to be thrown red-hot coals, cinders, someone's got to physically pick that up somehow and throw that. Like, it starts to become quite intriguing. Now, the police were called again and they arrived. 2 potatoes were thrown at them at the time while they were sitting down. I'm loving this poltergeist. So again, a difference in objects. And again, maybe it just does not like policemen. We don't know. But again, it's another interesting thing, at least, that there is now becoming multiple witnesses to this particular strange phenomenon, whatever it is happening. So by the next day at 9 a.m., loud bangs were heard all around the house, and it went for an hour. Now, an hour is quite a long time for any possible paranormal phenomena to be going on. So again, that's quite lengthy, and loud bangs, that would be quite intense and quite frightening. One of the sisters left the house to tell the magistrate. Now, because I know where this location is, I can actually tell where the magistrate courts, and it literally is only just up the road around the corner from where they live. So the window in Henry's room was also smashed. And Frederick, his son, decided to move him out of the house with the help of someone who was passing by. So his dad, obviously being quite invalid at the time, needed that help from somebody else from outside. So Frederick then reported, just as we were taking him out, a heavy chest of drawers crashed onto the floor in his bedroom. Okay, now that may not be so huge, but we're thinking of a family that have probably walked past this chest of drawers many times in over 25 years, and that hasn't happened. So again, unusual, yes. Possibly paranormal, not really sure on that. So it starts to escalate. One of the daughters witnessed a hall stand swaying at about to fall, and both her and Frederick managed to catch it in time, but Frederick says it felt like it was ripped out of his hands and crashed. That is also really intriguing. Again, we have to keep in mind they already believe there may be something quite strange going on. So what would be something falling out of your hands? If your mind's already thinking it's something strange, you may think it's being ripped out of your hands. Again, that's something to consider. We're looking at this from all different angles. The passerby to help Henry out of that location confirmed what the witnessed phenomena had happened. So there was someone to say, yeah, well, I saw that chest of drawers go down and crash onto the floor. One of the women was too afraid to go back into their house and pack her things, so she had 2 of the men follow her. So now she doesn't even feel safe being in her own home, and she actually wants to be, escorted back into a room to get her stuff and to leave. Aha! So our friend Harry Price investigates. So in the 19th January 1928, Harry Price, then the current president of the Ghost Club, started to investigate the case. I'm a member of Ghost Club, and I highly recommend anyone else, particularly in the UK, to be a part of it. It's a great organisation. When at the premises, he had heard a wooden-handled gas light land as if it was thrown. Now, these, it's hard to say. You think of it like a really strong steel door, and there was a handle that had gone in, and you could actually remove it as well. So it would click in and you would shut the door and then obviously open. They were quite heavy and they were quite full on. So he actually heard this actually being thrown as if it landed. So again, something to consider. Harry also thought that Henry was acting fraudulently, and Henry was taken to hospital for observation. So as we know, that's a psychic assessment as such, as we know today. So at least he's looking at all different types of possible ways in which this activity may be actually happening. But then again, I'm thinking Harry's pretty old, like he was on his way. So he must be pretty active if he's causing this kind of activity fraudulently. On the 23rd of January 1928, Mrs. Perkins told Harry Price that the dining room chairs were in line of the hallway. Now, this is where I start to geek out, because I think the next couple of things that happened is really intriguing. This is stuff that fascinates the bejeebies out of me. And so, again, we have to ask why. Why would a possible spirit, or even if it's not a spirit, if it's something that can be explained but we haven't figured it out yet, be lining chairs down a hallway in a row? That just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But it's just absolutely fascinating. So the weekend prior, the chairs stacked themselves on top of the dining table. Oh, she moved them back to have them arranged in the same way twice again. So you're in the same room when this phenomena is happening. You're doing something in the kitchen. Oh, I've got goosebumps. You're doing something in the kitchen. You turn around and the chairs are all stacked up on top of the dining table. Just not, you haven't heard anything. No one else has been in the room. And this is something that you've discovered. Put the chairs back, turn around, keep going. Like, why would something do that? What's the message in that? What's the idea, or what's the type of phenomena? It fascinates. It's just incredible. One occasion, an umbrella stand that had fallen over and an attaché case flown from a chair onto the floor. They all went outside to see, and through the window, the chairs fell down. Now, these chairs were actually believed to be quite heavy. So they've left the building. They're outside. They can see through the window these chairs, and then they can see these chairs all fall over. Fascinating. But poor Peter, the youngest, refused to sit on the chairs anymore, and he was soon sent to the countryside to recuperate. The poor child is obviously very traumatized. If you can't sit in your own kitchen chairs, then there's just no point. So he was obviously very rattled by what was happening, and they obviously sent him away so he could actually sort of calm himself, poor thing. Now, this is a bit of something else that Harry Price had actually witnessed, and I was going to try and break it down, but I can't do it too much. I have to give credence to what he's actually said, so I will read it out for you. To me, the noise sounded like a fall of a heavy boot or brush, and I once began to look for such an article. So did the Evening News representative, Mr. Grice, who accompanied Harry during the investigation. In a minute or so, I saw something dark under the chair in the corner, and putting my hand on it, I found out it was a pair of ladies' black shoes. Actually, I put my hand on a hard object, which was in the right shoe, and brought it to light. It was a small bronze ornament in the form of a cherub, weighing about 4 ounces. Now, this is unusual because this particular item had gone missing. Nobody knew where it went. People had looked everywhere. And for some reason now it had found itself in someone's right shoe. So again, interesting. So the house was then boarded up due to both Henry and Frederick that were away. So they were both away. Henry obviously having a psychic associate. I keep saying that. Sort of assessment. There we go, got it out. And Frederick obviously as well. One daughter was actually ill. Peter, obviously, as we know, he went to the countryside, and the other 2 daughters just did not want to be there on their own. And I actually don't blame them, to be honest, although I'd be more fascinated, of course. But I can understand, dealing with private and residential cases, nothing worse than feeling scared in your own home. Now, crowds had formed during this 6 to 8 week time frame, and police were involved to actually do crowd control, which is really interesting. So when I've wandered down that street a couple of times, I'm like, wow, I can only imagine what it would have been like with people kind of staring up at this particular place. And I've always had to be very careful when I've gone to actually look at the place myself, that I don't sort of dawdle too long when I walk past, because I can imagine the people there will be just like, oh no, not again. So yes. Right. On the 25th of January in 1928, Harry Price had the home opened up again, and he brought Mrs. Perkins with him this time. Now, this time he actually also brought a psychic, but the psychic didn't find anything significant whatsoever. So even someone who feels that they can be sensitive towards people who've passed on or the afterlife has actually obviously really said, I can't find anything here. There was also a piece of soap that was found upstairs in the corridor. Now, that not made a huge thing, but there was no soap in a corridor upstairs when he actually had boarded it. So that was something quite intriguing, that how it would have gotten from the bathroom and then into a hallway and then land in a hallway while everything was all boarded up. So the phenomena dies down, but not long after his visit. So it starts to dissipate. It's interesting how it had escalated and it's now dissipating. Frederick was allowed home, and Henry actually ended up dying in hospital, and the family then moved to a new address. So that's what it looks like today in daylight, in a typical London day. Hi, Marie. Good to see you, lovely lady. So something to consider, guys. A private asylum for those going through the effects of war can actually be seen from the back garden. Now, I haven't been able to find it yet, so I'm going to try and be. It may have been knocked down by now. I don't know, but I do want to actually go and figure out in which angle, whether or not on the plot. So say that's the house there. Whether it's this side, up along here. They say it's towards the back. I'm not sure left or right, so I'm going to see if I can have a bit of a look at the time of this recording. Apologies for street noise. Scooters make a living here. So yeah, that's one thing as well. That's so there is actually asylum for, I think they called it shell shock back in those days. Maybe the coal and pennies could have come from this location, considering it's an 80-yard distance. So it would need some decent projection for that to happen. So yeah, as I said, I want to go and have a look and see. I can do so much with Google Maps, but I need to be as discreet as possible and obviously not make people feel really awkward and gawked at with me going, where's the asylum? The Robertson family did have problems with the asylum in the past. So obviously, and they say problems, they didn't really. I tried to find out what those particular problems were, whether it was noise, whether it was problems with objects being thrown previously, or anything like that. I wasn't able to get any more detail on that. So I'd like to know what those problems were. But not all the phenomena reported could be explained. All the events that happened inside the home. So some of it could possibly be, but it's just intriguing the fact that stuff was happening not just outside and but inside as well. It wasn't just one area or the other, it's the whole location. And could one of the family be faking such events? If so, what would their plausible cause? What would cause them to do that? What would be their motivation to do that? So, sometimes people do things for attention. Sometimes, but I can't really see that happening considering the fact it's been 25 years in the same location. What else could it be? Maybe someone wants to defer attention from something else. But maybe one of them didn't want to live there anymore, and this was a more exorbitant way of moving out of a place but you wouldn't be living somewhere for 25 years if you didn't like it. So it didn't seem to really add up. Harry Price says that the gas lighter handle, the cherub, and the soap were the most puzzling for him since he couldn't find a logical explanation at the time. So those attributes, he thought, well, those things I can't explain. Most of it probably could be explained. He also states that there is no evidence the soldiers in the asylum behind the building were also involved too. Now, he makes a good point because you kind of need to witness it happening in order to go, yeah, that could be a plausible case. Or, I mean, at least you can guess it could be them, but unless anyone's seen or witnessed anything coming from the asylum itself, then you can't really say so. Harry believes the evidence for the abnormality of occurrences is more than likely the case than anything possibly fraudulent. And I'm going to have to agree with him on this one. I think what happened is interesting, particularly the chairs, man. I love the chairs. But it's really, something being fraudulent? Probably not. Probably not. So what do you guys think? Why can some phenomena occur in one location, which can be vastly different to another? Is it about the people, or is it about the location, or is it both? So What could be explained by something which is called xenonormal instead? So that's one, which is basically what Harry Price said. He goes, it's something that appears paranormal, but it's got natural causes. Like it's something strange, but I think there's going to be something naturally in some way that is causing it. What it is, we don't know. Poltergeist activity is often thought by some to be associated with teenagers. Yet Peter, who was 14, was taken from the property and the activity still occurred. It still happened. So then we kind of want to sort of rule that out. I'm actually leaning further and further away from that idea of teenagers causing possible paranormal activity as far as poltergeists. I'm sure there are parents that probably disagree with me. Also, activity was happening outside, not just inside the home. Again, that's really fascinating. I do find that really intriguing. And is the home, well, is it the home itself? As probably not likely, like we've mentioned, 25 years beforehand, nothing unusual has happened. So they've been living happily there for 25 years, and then suddenly there's some strange occurrences. So you can't call it new home theory or syndrome, I think it is, where you go into a place and it sounds like it's the Amityville horror house, but it's just the house settling, but you're just not used to it. Boom. And that is it. So guys, some interesting things to ponder. You know, what was happening with this particular case, possibly more so xenonormal than anything else, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Use the comment section in YouTube as well as Facebook as well. Would love to know your thoughts on it. Next Friday is going to be the next case, which is also around this area too. Again, my two loves, London and Poltergeists. Might as well just marry them together and talk about it. So I do hope everyone's having a wonderful time as much as you can in these very, very trying times. And at the time of this recording, Australia's dealing with some decent lockdown measures. Again, my heart goes out to you and everybody as well. I've been through that version of lockdown, and it is extremely mentally tough to be so restricted. It's the restriction of freedom to be able to go out and do things and explore. So I'm thinking for everybody, and also everyone who is being affected by COVID physically, as well as having lost people due to it as well. So I'm thinking of everybody, hoping everyone's okay. Do take care, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this particular subject. Until next week.